Okay, welcome everybody, and especially to the people who are present today with me that are accompanying me here. Okay, but to everybody who registered for this webinar, thank you very much. This is the fourth webinar of the series devoted to dissect each chapter of our dissertation, so you can have a good idea of what you are expected to create. Today, I will present you the findings chapter. That part of your dissertation that shows the result of your work and that I have titled, Look What I Got, because it's a kind of showroom. As usual, let's see a related quote. In fact, this is a quote that I created specifically for this webinar. It was inspired by a common situation in which the researcher develops a study intended to prove their point of view, instead of looking for what is really happening or why it is happening in that way. They are biased and don't allow any option that challenges their view to happen or discuss an unexpected result. So that's something that you have to take into account when you are writing your results chapter. Here you have today's agenda. Like the previous ones of this series, it includes a presentation of what the chapter is about, its purpose and importance, how you are expected to present your results, what are the most common mistakes done when writing it, and how to avoid them. So the idea is that you can have the concept and a clear view of what you are expected to do, and also that you can apply some guidelines to develop a better chapter. The fourth part of your dissertation is devoted to present your findings, your results. And because of that, it is in fact the display of your work. Like any other showcase, it has to be coherent and attractive. If it is presented in a confusing way, you will have problems selling your product, which is at the end what you really want. So chapter 4 is given different titles: analysis of data, results of a study, analysis and results, and many others. The two key words is analysis and results, where the researcher analyzes the data collected and presents the results in chapter 4. Analysis here implies the use of relevant tools to establish similarities, differences, patterns, and relationships. Sometimes students spend so much time collecting and analyzing the data, but then they don't do a good job when reporting what they have found. Some students, let's say, sell short by under-reporting the data they have collected and analyzed. In other words, they fail to tease out valuable and relevant information and present it in the chapter so readers can understand the impact of their work. Sometimes the presentation of the data is not clear, even though chapter 1, 2, and 3 are well written. Chapter 4 is perhaps the most important chapter because it is the culmination of all your efforts. People would like to know what you have found out after spending so much time doing your study. If you fail to present it in a clear and understandable way, they may ask, what's the big deal? It is a big deal because the findings are the core of the whole study. You should be really excited in what you have found and to be able to convey that excitement in chapter 4. As the slide suggests, findings are different from conclusions, since the latter derive from the former. You make conclusions based on the results you got by relating results to theory and research questions. And an important element of findings is how much valid they are to explain the study phenomenon and let you design a solution if that is your purpose. Such validity depends on the chosen research design and also the consistency of its application. So let's continue by talking about the purpose of chapter 4 and its importance. The main goal of the chapter, as the slide states, is to present the results of the study clearly and emphasize their significance to the field of study, the study context, and the target population. Its importance expands even more because findings let you answer the research questions or address your objectives. In other words, it creates the showroom of your work. Is the place where your readers can find the information that makes your work valuable and where you show off its quality. That means you have to design and organize this showroom in a clean, attractive, easy to follow, sensible, and consistent way. This is a list of the information that is usually included in the findings chapter. It is commonly presented as headings and subheadings, but that's not a fixed rule. In this sense, your university may have a different way to present the results of your work, and you have to know the required structure before writing. As you can see, you describe population and sample, including their characteristic. And you may say, okay, wait a minute, but I did it in chapter 3 when I talk about methodology. Yeah, but you restate it in chapter 4, so readers can check the results exactly in the same place that they have what you intended to do, the population, the sample, and the research question. So they don't have to go back to chapter 3 and then go back to chapter 4 again. And you also restate the research question or hypothesis, describe methods applied, present results, even the unexpected one, those things that you didn't think about, but that emerge from the data. And you state why those findings can be trusted, okay? So you have a lot of things to include in the chapter 4, and you do it, or you restate some parts because you don't want your readers to go back to another chapter whenever they have to check your findings, and not only check, but evaluate your findings. So when they are reading your findings, they can say, okay, this is the research question and these are the findings. They seem in the same line of thought or not. And they can say, oh, how this person collected all this information, and they don't have to go back to a methodology chapter. To develop a high-quality chapter, you need to follow some principles that are based on organization, remembering the reader, clarity, and prioritizing the display of the results. Of all these principles, the second one make you wonder the reason to do it. So you may ask, why do I have to think as a spectator rather than as the presenter? It is simple. You want to display your findings, which is at the end the same as selling them. Therefore, they must be understandable for the readers who are in fact the buyers of them. Okay, that's why you have to put in their shoes. To present findings, 3 tools are the most commonly used: tables, figures, and text. Tables and figures are intended to present a large amount of information efficiently and in a more comprehensible way. Their main purpose is to facilitate readers' understanding of the work. They are not decorative elements in a dissertation, and therefore, each one of them must serve a purpose. Let's have a look to them. Let's begin talking about the use of tables to present findings. Tables present numerical values or textual information in a row column structure. Any other type of illustration or image is considered a figure. The information in a table must be concisely included. So check that example of a table and see how concisely everything is there. Adrian says, it seems to me that in order to organize chapter 4 in a logical, consistent manner, it is necessary to keep in mind the golden thread that will be discussed in chapter 5. Yeah, and you have to, as I'm going to explain in some minutes, you have to take into account your research questions in order to present your findings. I'm going to talk about that. Oh, by the way, this table was part or is part of the doctoral dissertation of one of my mentees, Dr. Christopher Geldert. That you know that he was awarded the best dissertation of his university in 2012. And I have to say that that's something that I'm very proud of. He is my boy. Okay. This is an example of a table that presents quantitative findings. Look at the simplicity of the presentation, despite the amount of information included. Direct information without excessive use of lines and title. Check it for a moment. Okay. And this one is the same what I have said before is true for a table that shows qualitative results. This is very simple, but at the same time, it has a lot of important information. For instance, in this case, it illustrates the themes that emerge from the analysis of the data. And it also connects strategies and characteristics in a simple way without too many lines and very easy to understand. These are some of the principles you should follow when using tables. They should be integral to the text, but has to be understood in isolation, and that's important. I mean, you create a table that is connected to the rest of the chapter and connected to the text, but at the same time, you have to understand it in isolation, like this one. Okay? If you look at this table without reading any other text, you can still have a good idea of what it tries to make you think about. Okay? And that's why they are so important. All tables, even the ones in appendices, need to be concise. It's true that the ones in appendices may have larger amounts of information, but they have still to be concise because that's a characteristic of a table. Each table must show something specific that can be interpreted at a glance. You look at it and immediately you know what it talks about. The specific arrangement of the data depends on the purpose you establish for the table. For instance, when a table is intended to compare, then the entries must be next to one another. If not, you cannot compare the information. You see, it's a simple principle, but a very important one. Above all, table layout should be logical and easy grasped by readers. Okay. I have included some points that are in the new edition of APA manual, publication manual. For instance, assign Arabic numerals in the order in which each table is mentioned in the text. That was something that was done in many universities, but the usual way was to number the table in terms of a number of the chapter and then a number of the occurrence of it. But now you don't include the chapter number, okay? And remember that you have to label all columns because that's a hint for readers to know what they are reading about. Well, the other ones are self-explanatory, in fact. And here you have a checklist that may help you be sure that your tables are built in the best way to fulfill the goal. This one is included in the latest edition of the APA publication manual. If you enlarge it, when you download the slides that are on the handout, if you enlarge the image, you can read it easily. Okay. Now, the second tool is figures, which includes graphs, histograms, maps, photos, etc. In summary, all types of graphical displays are considered figures, at least in APA style. Their main goal is to illustrate findings in a clear and direct way. You should ensure that all figures add substantively to readers' understanding and do not duplicate other elements like tables or too detailed text. In other words, each figure has to convey something important by itself, not to complement or to, it could be complement, but not to say the same or convey the same that a table or that text that you have written, okay? Each figure and each table and each text should have an intention, a clear intention to add new information. Okay? You should ensure that all figures can be understood. And you need to focus on the principle of enhancing readers' understanding, and that helps you decide other points like use of color, use of photographic images, need to crop those images, etc. So it's useful not only for the readers, but also for you when you have to make decisions about how to present those figures. Figures must follow the standards of simplicity, clarity, continuity, and basically information value. They are not decorations, and that's important to remember. And when do you say that you have a good figure? When that figure, first, do not duplicate the text. Second, conveys only essential information. Third, omits distracting details. Fourth, is easy to read. Fifth, is easy to understand because its purpose is clear. Sixth, is carefully planned and prepared. And seventh, reflects the same style of the other figures. In other words, that you create as consistent way of presenting your figures, that you don't change their style too much, in fact. Okay, this is a figure that illustrates a quantitative finding. Look at it, it is clear, it absolutely can be understood without reading any other thing, because the legend is clear, because the data is presented in a very planned way. Okay? And this one illustrates a qualitative result. And it has the same characteristic. The first one has numerical information, but this one has qualitative information, but still is clear, is self-explanatory. Okay. So these are the principles that guide the use of figures in the findings chapter. Like with tables, they pointed out that figures should be used only if they contribute significantly to the understanding of the result, not because they may look pretty. Okay? And you may say, okay, you have said that too many times in such a short time. Yes, and I do it on purpose, because as an editor and as a mentor, I have witnessed lots of dissertations in which this chapter is full of useless tables and useless figures, useless because they don't provide new information or essential information to be included there. Okay? So sorry if I say it again and again and again. Welcome, Linda. Okay, this is the checklist about figures that can help you build significant and well-designed figures. So you can go through it and know what you have done well and what you don't. Okay. Now, the final tool to present findings is text. And you know a lot about text, but despite the fact texts are the substance of a dissertation, in the findings chapter, they should be used in a cautious way, differently to other parts of the dissertation, because there you have to focus on guiding the reader's attention to the main features of what you had found. So texts function as guiding elements rather than explanations of the result's occurrence. Okay? And usually findings are not discussed in chapter 4, but 5. However, that depends on the requirements of your university or supervisor, and therefore you have to be sure of what or how are expected to develop this chapter. But the most important thing here is that you remember that text in the findings chapter are different from text in other parts of the dissertation. And now you can see that in the next two slides. Here, you have an example of how to present a quantitative finding using a text and without discussing the finding. Read it, and you will see that. It's just a descriptive text, not an explanatory one. You are guiding the reader's attention to know what this person or this researcher had found. And this is a qualitative, a text to present a qualitative result. As you can see, the text guides the reader to interpret a figure without repeating the specific information showed in it. So he talks about the result that was presented in a figure, but he didn't restate the result in terms of specific information. He just add new information so you can have a deeper understanding of what this person have found. And these are the principles that rule the use of text in the findings chapter. Pay special attention to the last principle, since it clarifies the role of text for qualitative results. Okay? 3 important principles that you can follow when you are writing the texts of your chapter 4. Well, now it's time to, oh my God, look at the most common mistakes that supervisors and editors find in the results chapter, and basically also how to avoid them, which is the most interesting part of it. So check this list of weaknesses that I usually found there. For instance, some students include all the gathered data, all the data that they gather and analyze, okay? Or use text to describe everything. They include a table and then they restate what the table says in a text. Or they include a figure and they do the same thing. Okay? They repeat and repeat the information. Or they presented the results in an organized way. They talk about something first, and then they continue talking about a quite different result or something that refers to another research question, and they go back to the first one, and that's a confusing way of doing that. Or they write long explanations, or use numbers that are meaningless or out of context, okay? Just to put numbers there so they can see, okay, I have 10 pages of numbers. Yeah, but are all of them relevant, meaningful? Okay? And they usually mix findings with conclusions. Do you say, okay, I understand that, but how can I avoid them? Let's see some ways. First, select only the information that is most relevant to the question you want to answer in your dissertation. Include information that may or may not support your hypothesis, since you should let your readers know that you have carefully considered all the data relevant to your research question. So you include not only things that are for your point of view, but also things that are against or challenging your point of view. Second, some data might be better understood in a more visual format, like a table or a figure. In theory, if you are able to capture the essence of most of your data by using clear graphs and illustration, then the text portion of the results chapter might be one of the shortest sections of your paper, because you did it, or you do it very well with the text, with the tables and figures. So your texts are not so necessary. Third, your text should complement the graphical information and vice versa. Complement, no repeat. Fourth, organize your information. It is usually done following the order of the research questions or hypothesis or objective. That's the easiest way of doing it. You'd say, okay, my first question was this, and these are the results in relation to this question. My second question, or my second hypothesis, or my second objective was this one, and these are the results that are related to it. Usually also you go from the most important to the least important, so you can impact your readers' attention, showing in the first place the most important finding. And you keep your descriptions concise. Eliminate phrases that establish passive voice structures. When you use the active voice and choose strong verbs, your sentences will shrink and your message will be clearer. So don't write long explanation. Go to the point and use active voice to emphasize. Presenting long strings of very detailed information without highlighting relevant trends may cause confusion. So, you better help readers digest your information. You have to guide them to what you want to show off. And finally, unless your university requires it, present results without discussing them. Remember, you have to write a discussion chapter. And if you discuss everything in chapter 4, so you don't have to write the next chapter. But if you are required to do it, so discuss everything in that chapter. And here you have other suggestions that are intended to help you write a clear, concise, and understandable chapter 4. For instance, I've already said that you present findings according to the question they answer. Use text to introduce tables and graphs. Short text. I say, in the next table, or table number 5, 6, whatever, you can see how the participants react to this thing. For instance, you state which is the key finding that each table or graph illustrates. That's important. You have to say this table and this thing shows this. And you can do it using the table itself or the figure itself, and also using a short introductory text, so guiding your reader's attention. And as I said before, use only the tables and graphs that are absolutely necessary to explain findings. Do not decorate things unnecessary. And this is the main idea of this webinar. Look, findings are the main product of your work. All that work that you did during such a long time is reflected in your results. They are your baby. It's a baby. And you show them off. And you do it in a way that readers buy them, convinced that you are offering, that what you are offering is a high quality, valid product. In summary, tell them, look what I got, but do it very proudly and confidently, okay? And these are the reference for today's webinar. As I said at the beginning, it's a short webinar, but the things that you have to pay attention to in chapter 4 are the key to your success, because this is the part of your dissertation, together with chapter 5, the chapter of conclusion, recommendation, and discussion, is the part of your dissertation that can push you to the place that you want to be in. Okay? Because this is the part, this is your product, this is your baby, and you say, look what I got. And I am very, very awesome. And you can tell that if you look at my results. See, I'm great, you see? And that's the attitude when you present your findings. You have to do it in a confident way, in a very proud way. This is what I did, and I did it great. So it's a chapter that has to be approached with a confident attitude and with the idea that this is what you need in order to be really successful. Okay? So, any question, any comment that you want to share? Oh, April. Hey. No comments, no questions? Is everything so clear? Okay. I don't know what to think about that, because either I was very clear or not so clear. Oh, Jianfin, are there certain most recognized figures or table for qualitative research? I think there are some of them, but that depends on what you want to say. In other words, the main criteria to choose a table or to choose a figure is, what do you want to show? And when you answer that question, you will find the best table or the best type of table or the best type of figure. So it's not a matter of saying, okay, and in this kind of research studies, they use this and this and this figures, or kind of table. What you have to think of is, what is the best tool that I can find in order to convey the result that I got and its importance, its significance for the study. That's what you have to think of. That's your main criteria. I can say the same for quantitative research, because people say, okay, everybody presents pies, another presents columns of things, another present trains, but which one is the best to reflect what I got? That's the point. What was the name of the circular graph you showed? Any recommended article to highlight figure to result choice? Do you mean do you mean the one of the qualitative? Just a moment. Let me go there. You mean this one? This figure is in fact a figure to relate things, because if you check it, you will see that there are some parts in which one circle overlap another one, and that part is the part that you want to say, look, here there are some relationships that have this. Okay. Any article to highlight figures to result choice? We have to research that, and if you write me this address, I promise to look for some articles that you can use in that kind of. Okay. I usually work with quantitative research studies and mixed method research studies. Okay, but I can research that for you. Just write me an email there so I can do it. I think that many people are new to qualitative research, but the point is that the only approach or the only research design that you're going to use, qualitative research, in your study? Or you are going to use a mixed method research design? Okay. That's very interesting. You know that I'm really fond of that kind of research. Why? Because usually they have to be, they deal with human phenomena, and that means that they have to address very complex situations. Good. Okay, descriptive mixed. Adrian says, because I'm somehow illustrating to the readers how my advisor's analytic model has been applied to analyze the data, I find that it is sometimes impossible to keep my result chapter strictly descriptive. For example, I feel compelled to at least explain to the readers how certain components of her model have materialized in my data analysis. Okay, since you have this very novel model, you need to guide the readers to understand the data. that is not against the principles that we have talked about today. Because the main goal is that your readers can understand what you did and what you got. And therefore, if you need to guide them to understand certain components of the model, then that's valid. Because the alternative to that is that because they don't know the model very deep, even though I guess that you explain it in chapter 2 in the literature review, but if they can be guided to see, look, what I said in chapter 2 about this model is really illustrated here in chapter 4 by these results. That's not a deep discussion of things. It's a guideline to readers to understand the result. Without that information, they may not be able to understand the whole thing. So that's valid. That's not against the principle. Okay? Janvin, don't forget to send me an email so I can remember and I can fulfill my promise. Right? Any other question? Oh, yes, you have to be relieved. I mean, providing that you focus on guiding the readers to say, this is important. You need to know this in order to fully get the picture of what I got. That's okay. I mean, you are a linguist and you know how to use the language in that sense, just to guide without discussing, just guiding. You can do that. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording, but I continue here talking to you. Before finishing the recording, I want to thank all of you that have registered for this webinar. And I want to invite you for the next one, which is about the final dissertation chapter, how you discuss your results, how you get conclusions, and how you make recommendations, how you close the whole process in a very high and encouraging way. Okay? After that, I'll get back in April. I will get back to argumentation. And I get back with the first one is about dialectical argumentation. And the last one is about the analytical or Tulemian argumentation. So if you are interested in knowing how to make better argumentation in your academic papers, you are invited to those two webinars. By now, thank you very much for registering, especially to the ones that attended today.